A very good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Weather Talk by myself, Mark Fogan. Hope you're all well and safe wherever you are. Before we continue with today's interview, be sure to hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button as well. I do greatly appreciate it. I am honoured to say that I've got Mr. Aidan McGivern of the Met Office joining me in today's video. A very good afternoon to Aidan. How you doing, sir?
Hi, Mark. Great to see you. Yeah, I'm great today. A little disappointed by the weather. If I just switch this around, you can see the outside view.
Oh, yeah,
it's quite pouring down today.
Wow, looks quite soggy.
Yeah, you can see the palm trees there because I'm in Devon. That's where the Met Office HQ is. But it's not so tropical today, or at least the rainfall feels tropical, but the temperatures don't. After the beautiful weekend we've just had, it's a bit disappointing. We're back to rain, but there you go.
Yeah,
keeps it interesting.
Exactly. It's kind of hazy, kind of sunshine trying to break through the clouds, but the temperature here at the house is only about 16.5 degrees, I think, this afternoon. But very pleasant, a lot fresher than it was over the course of the weekend. I think everywhere's really starting to see the breakdown. Aidan, you would know better than me, my friend.
Yeah, it's back to low pressure this week. We've had high pressure for the last 5 to 7 days, and increasingly warm air as well. Over the weekend, I was in Lincolnshire walking with some friends, and it's just sunny, it's beautiful, mid-20s Celsius. I like a bit of that. I like a variety of weather really, but it seems like we've not had much of that more prolonged settled weather this year. So I really appreciated it at the time.
Yeah, it's good to get a bit of sunshine, get out, mix and mingle with friends, and okay, so kind of slightly conscious of time, so I want to try and rattle through some of these questions that I have for today. So obviously you're based in you're talking and based in Exeter and Devon at Met Office HQ. You're obviously not from the south. Are you from the southwest, or whereabouts are you from?
No, I grew up in Cardiff.
Right.
So I'm Welsh. Right. My parents are Irish, so I'm kind of Welsh Irish. And then I left when I was 18. Studied in Edinburgh, so I did a geography degree at Edinburgh.
Okay.
Then took a year out, went travelling, and then did a master's in meteorology in Birmingham. And after that, I joined the Met Office and primarily worked around London for about 10 years before arriving in the southwest 7 years ago to do the current job that I'm doing.
All right. Okay. Very interesting. Actually, yeah. So, could you tell me a little bit about how you discovered, when and how you discovered your interest and passion for weather?
Yeah. So I was quite young, actually. I was 7 years old, and I can pinpoint the moment because my mum used to make me write a diary when I was 7 years old.
Right, okay.
And I did it reluctantly. And for the first few months of that diary, I just wrote about school and, what I did each day and so on. And then in February 1991, we had a lot of snow in Cardiff and quite a famous snow event. It's the one that the British Rail never lived down because they talked about the wrong kind of snow on the line, and that's why we had a lot of delays. Right. So it was we had all this snow, and as all 7-year-olds do, I became fascinated by it. I just wanted to know then when it was next going to snow. So I wrote all about the snow in my diary. I wrote about how much snow we had, and building snowmen and sledging, and school was cancelled, all that stuff. And then every day after that in my diary, I wrote about the weather. So that's the point at which I became obsessed with the weather. And I wasn't content with just like I did then. I woke up and there was snow everywhere. I wanted to know when it was going to snow next. So I started obsessively watching the weather forecast on the TV and looking at the forecast in the newspaper and CFAX and teletext and all that. So from that point onwards, any weather forecast I could get my hands on, I would add.
I think you're frozen, my friend. He's back.
Sorry, where did you lose me?
Literally just a matter of seconds there. You were talking there about your about the snow and always wanting to. It was literally just a few seconds.
Yeah.
Good old technology.
So I wanted to know when it was going to snow next, so I started obsessively devouring all these weather forecasts. In those days, obviously, you had to watch the news and wait until the end of the news to watch a weather forecast, or look at it in the paper, or CFAX or teletext. But yeah, that's the point. And so after that, I knew what I wanted to do.
Okay, that's fascinating. It's always interesting to find out the seed to the interest. It was actually the 1987 storm. I lived with my brother and my mum and dad in London, in central London. It was actually the Camberwell area, and it was the storm. Even though I was 4 years of age, I can still remember the wind that night. And I've always said that event was probably what made me fascinated by the weather as well. I think everybody's got a story, haven't they?
Yeah, you meet a lot of people here at the Met Office. A lot of them mention the 1987 storm. Quite a number of them mention 1976 summer. You know, that heat wave. It depends the age, depends how old you are, what kind of weather events influenced you. I bet if you went further back, it'd be 1963 snow, and so there's a lot of meteorologists who've been inspired by earlier weather events that have had a strong impression on themselves.
Yeah. So that brings us on to find out, is there a particular personality that you have followed growing up that's kind of inspired you, like helped bring on your interest in the weather? Is there anybody on TV that particularly stands out?
I would say not a single person, but I used to watch, in particular, BBC weather forecasts all the way through the 90s, I guess, and early 2000s. So Michael Fish, Ian McCaskill, Peter Cockcroft, Rob McElwee, and just watching all those characters, you just imagine what it's like to do that kind of job. You think, wow, that must be so interesting to go and work every day and just talk about the weather. And they're all different kinds of personalities, and they weren't necessarily these slick presenters, certainly. So they just seemed like proper meteorologists who knew what they were talking about, and I just really admired that, and I thought I didn't just want to go on TV for the sake of going on TV. I wanted to talk about the weather every day. I wanted to really get stuck in and study the weather and forecast it and communicate it.
And you do an amazing job, by the way. I thoroughly enjoy.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that, Aidan. You're by far one of my favourites in terms of your delivery and presentation of the weather. I always hone in on how it's explained. And I suppose here on my channel on YouTube, I try my best to kind of, over the years, I watched meteorologists like Joe Bastardi and based in America, and even BBC forecasters in the past, and yourselves. Like the deep dive's amazing because it's a great way of being able to kind of see a little bit more than what you would typically see in a presentation, I suppose. I think that's a great feature with the Met Office, the deep dive. I think it's very useful, and clearly it's a very popular thing on a Tuesday afternoon for everybody as well.
And I introduced the deep dive back in December 2022. We've got this touch screen behind me here, actually. In the studio.
All right.
There it is.
So that's where the deep dive's done.
That's it. Yeah. So we stand with his desk here.
Right. Okay. Cool. Interesting.
The touch screen looks quite small there because I'm a bit further away from it. But yeah.
I actually thought, funny enough, I thought it would have been bigger.
It's what is it, 63 inches or something?
It's big enough. Yeah.
Maybe it looks bigger on with the studio camera, but I thought that it's the sort of thing that I would enjoy watching. So let's, give it a go.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone, obviously. Not everyone wants to watch a 25-minute forecast, but it has proved popular with people who want that extra information, people who don't just want to know what the weather's doing, but why it's doing that and why it has been doing this thing and why we think it might be doing this other thing, and the probabilities and the mechanics behind it all, and all of that stuff. So it's a great outlet for us to really analyze these things in depth and to talk at length, and maybe teach ourselves stuff about sometimes we're learning as well, but also teach other people about all the different things that are at play with our weather, and there's always something to talk about as well. That's the beauty of it. Each week there's something to grasp and to try and explain, and we love doing it. So we're really pleased that other people enjoy watching them as well.
I think it's terrific. I really do. And I think it's a good way to even educate a little bit more as well. And things like the deep dive, I think, could actually bring out an interest in the weather that people perhaps didn't realise they had, I think.
Yeah, I think from some of the comments, that would suggest that there are people who are discovering there's a lot more to the weather forecast than they previously thought, and they are more interested in those the mechanics behind it and the reasons behind the forecast. One of the most interesting things about the UK weather is just how many influences there are on the weather in the UK, and how complicated it is. And there's never a straight answer for anything. There's all these different microclimates. We're next to a continent and an ocean. We get winds from the north and winds from the south, and there are so many reasons behind whether we get winds from the north or south or east or west. And when you start looking into it, it's like a puzzle. You can look at it in a very simple way, like why was the winter wet? Well, it's because we had a lot of low pressure. But then if you add an extra layer, and you could look into the jet stream and the jet stream causing those areas of low pressure, and then you can add another layer and talk about the south shifted jet stream and why was it south shifted? What influenced that? And so I find with the UK's weather, you can explain the reasons behind it in 30 seconds or 3 minutes or 10 minutes or 25 minutes. So you can, just like a puzzle, you can kind of uncover additional layers of complexity, and there's always further that you can go. And I find that really interesting to just keep asking why all the time.
Well,
why was the jet stream to the south? Why was El Nino doing this? And why would that be connected? And all that stuff, I find that interesting, and I love trying to find ways of explaining it so that everyone can hopefully understand.
Yeah, because that's exactly my thinking. Is trying to always asking the question why, and even if X, Y, and Z layer, there's always another layer to be added on top of that. For example, the block over Greenland, kind of the west-based negative NAO pattern that we had, and what was the cause of. I know this is going into it, but the SSWs, we had two reversals. We had several waves of warmth within the stratosphere. What was the reason for that happening in the first place? And I was even thinking, like, is it possible that the troposphere was slightly more expanded because of the level of heat that we were seeing over China and eastern parts of Asia, and then you had obviously the natural cold from Siberia pushing into that unusually warm air masses. That it was making me think: is it forcing the warmth to rise through the atmosphere into the stratosphere and creating these constant warming episodes with it? Because it was a very, very weird winter, I think.
Yeah. Really weird, and there are so many weird things across the world at the moment. The sea surface temperatures across the world. The switch from La Nina to the La Nina for 3 years, and then El Nino. the heat, the extra heat in the atmosphere because of El Nino, and persistent blocking as well that we've seen so much of in the last few months, Greenland block and so on. So many things. It's all these different factors just add complexity, and sometimes it's chicken and egg. It's like there's a block over here. Is that caused by the wavy jet stream, or is the wavy jet stream causing the block? Or it's unraveling this is fascinating, but there's never a straight answer. I'd be really interested to see if there's a study to look at the last 7, 8, 9 months of UK weather and try and find some answers at least.
Yeah. Because I last summer I had forecasted the dry start, but a very significant turn in the month of July to weather. Now I personally attributed that to the El Nino, which I don't really think it properly kicked in until the middle of winter, when it kind of seemed to override the entire pattern. Because I was kind of using the Manjulian oscillation being in phases 4 and 5. That promoted warmer conditions over eastern United States and Europe. And then it was rotating into the colder phases. And the cold phases were actually playing out quite well. But then I found that the MJO wasn't as good of a signal, and something else overtook the whole system, which I think was El Nino personally, but I don't know for sure. And obviously drove a very, very mild second half to winter, and then obviously spring. But I think this wet pattern has been really since July last year, and it's really just continued with a few blips in between.
Yeah, and actually, if you look further back, then you could see that we've had above average pressure over Greenland since last March. Most months, I'm not sure it was every month, but most months since last March, there's been an average high pressure anomaly over Greenland. And so that could almost explain quite a number of the weather events that we've had in that period. We had this persistent high over the UK mid to late May and June last year. We had lovely weather. But whether that was kind of also related to high latitude blocking and it was essentially the same cause of that caused the wetter weather that we had since then. It'd be interesting to see, but the one commonality that we've seen since March 2023 is this persistent high. Not always there, but it keeps returning to Greenland, and that tends to encourage blocking, often with low near the UK, but not always.
It certainly is fascinating stuff. Can you give us a wee indicator as to I think you kind of did touch on it, but like going from interest to career in terms of the weather?
Yeah, so I studied geography at Edinburgh University because that was the subject that interested me the most. It wasn't necessarily the subject that was going to get me to a place where I could become a meteorologist. It was just the subject at school I was most interested in. So I thought, go to university, study it, and as long as it's something you're interested in, then you'll do okay. Then because my second choice was maths, but I thought geography might be more interesting. Then I think I tried to get into the Met Office after my geography degree. Sometimes they let people in with geography, sometimes not. Their entry requirements frequently change. Normally you need a scientific type of degree, and whether or not geography counts has varied in the past. In that instance, it didn't count as a degree to get me into the Met Office. So I did some admin work in Cardiff, and then I went travelling around the world and came back, and I then did a master's degree in meteorology at Birmingham University, and really enjoyed that. And it was after that I then got admitted into the Met Office. I started as a trainee meteorologist in Exeter, so there was quite a long period of training on the job and also in the classroom. That lasted about 6 to 9 months. And then when you join the Met Office as a trainee meteorologist, you kind of get stationed somewhere.
Okay.
So I got put in RAF Odium, and my job was to forecast the weather for the RAF pilots at RAF Odium, primarily helicopter pilots. That's where they fly the Chinooks and Lynx helicopters and so on. So that was great. Yeah, you learn so much more doing that kind of thing than you do in the classroom, and really interesting. Very different to the kind of weather forecasting I do now, because it was highly specific for specific routes, for specific types of helicopter and so on, and they're interested in turbulence, thunderstorms, cumulonimbus clouds, low cloud, fog, all that stuff. So you're briefing these pilots and warning them of various hazards they might encounter and advising them on the best routes to take and so on. And after 4 years of that, exactly. After 4 years of that, I spent a few summers as well offshore. So I did some offshore forecasting. I was basically stationed on this big floating crane in the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea. So you get flown in on a helicopter, and then you're the only meteorologist on board. So you're there 24/7, but you're working like 12-hour shifts, and there are these multi-million-pound operations where they're constructing or dismantling various constructions in the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea, and they need very specific wave heights and wind speeds and so on, because if they get the wrong waves and the wrong winds, then it could spoil a project. So that was a pretty pressurized environment to work in, but great, really interesting. Then, because I was interested in the media side of things as well, I then started working in London for ITV. So advising the presenters what to say and producing their graphics and so on. And it was through that job that I ended up working for ITV Anglia as a presenter for half the week. I was still employed by the Met Office, but I started doing presenting for ITV Anglia. And after 4 years of doing that, this job came up in Exeter. The team I work in was expanding, and they were developing this studio capability where we could present the weather from Exeter. And so I got this job as presenter for the Met Office, and I've been doing that for the past 7 years.
Well, fascinating stuff, by the way. Tell you what, you're not a particularly old chap, but you've got already a wealth of experience.
Probably older than I look, but I've worked for the Met Office for 17 years, and the great thing about working with the Met Office is the variety of things you can do. So the fact that you can work for the RAF, work for ITV, work offshore, and that's not even the half of it. We've got Space Weather Team, we've got people who go to the Falklands and Cyprus and Antarctica. So there are so many opportunities. You can be a meteorologist, but it means different things in different places. You can work in a huge variety of different environments. You can work for Highways England or Scotland or whatever. You can work flood forecasting. So you could start as a meteorologist, and then your career could just diverge. You just start doing, going places that you're interested in, and working in very different walks of life. Not always the same office in Exeter. You can go to different countries, work for different organisations. That's the best thing about this huge variety that you've got.
Certainly sounds like you love your job, and I can understand why, based on what you've just said. Like, really fascinating stuff, actually. Can you talk us through a typical workday?
Yeah, so I would say that there's not a typical workday necessarily. Every day's different, but we've got 5 presenters in our team, and we've got a roster where we do different things on different days. Today, I'm doing all the kind of customer forecasts, so that means GB News, as well as British Forces, Gibraltar as well. We do forecasts for,
Okay.
and then the Met Office videos that go on social media and the app and so on. And so we're in the studio 2 or 3 times in different times a day, and we're preparing graphics in advance. We're looking at the weather and thinking about what we're going to say and how we're going to say it, and how we're going to use graphics to help explain the story. And then we're in the studio for about half an hour to an hour, recording different bulletins for different organizations and with different lengths and so on. So that's what I'm doing today. Other days I'll be working on developing graphics or writing scripts for evergreen videos, or advising people on social media and so on. So yeah, the work is varied and involves different things at different days, but we've got a roster in our team to make sure that everyone does a bit of something.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Conscious a wee bit that the time is starting to run out. So let me see here. Really quick, and I think you've probably answered this already. Is there a particular weather event or season that kind of stands out in your mind?
I mentioned the snow in February 1991, but since starting my career, there's been a few that stood out. The one most recently was when we got 40 degrees in the UK. Just something that was flagged by the models 10 days ahead, but you didn't believe it until it happened. That's not going to happen, but it did, and it was absolutely extraordinary to see the temperatures go that high across the UK on that day. So that really stands out. It was an incredibly busy week, but a really interesting week meteorologically. Before that, Beast of the East definitely stands out. That was just incredible how what the weather felt like. The situation with those easterly winds. Never thought I'd see snow like that in Devon with our palm trees and so on. So that was exceptional. December 2010 as well, that stands out. I love the snow. That's why I got into it. So I love those snowy events, and living in Devon, you don't expect much snow. So to see it on in those cold episodes was amazing. Heat wave of 2003 also, that summer was extraordinary. But of course it was extraordinary at the time, but we've had a few summers that have been like that since. So, and 2018 of course as well. The summer of 2018 stands out because that just went on and on and on.
But almost a bit of a 76 summer that was.
It was amazing, except for August.
Well, that's true. We've got just under 2 minutes left. Very, very quickly, do you have a particular favourite place that you like to go on holiday, or?
Oh, I like a variety. In the winter, I like doing proper winter holidays. Went to Lapland in February. I just love it. We had deep snow, we had freezing temperature. I love that in the winter. Amazing. But then equally in the summer, I like going somewhere hot. One of my favourite places to go on holiday is Thailand. I've got family living in Thailand. Right. In the UK, I love holidaying in Scotland. Having gone to Edinburgh University, I just like going to the Highlands and go somewhere where there's no one around and doing hiking and so on. But equally, I like beaches in Devon and Cornwall. I like variety. It's the spice of life. That's what I like.
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time. If you're ever up in the Inverness area, give me a shout. It would be nice to have a coffee and buy you lunch.
You will do. Yeah.
Listen, Aidan, thank you very, very much for taking the time out to chat and find out some fascinating things about your career and your it was fantastic to have you. Thank you very much for that.
No problem at all. No problem. And good luck with it. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
The channel.
You enjoy the rest of your day and week.
Cheers, Mark.
Take care of yourself.
Chat soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. So, what did you think of that, my friends? I hope you enjoyed the conversation that myself and Aidan had. As ever, hit that like button, share with your friends and family, and subscribe. There will be more fascinating and exciting interviews to come in this series in the weeks ahead. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with more. Bye for now.